A hearty good evening to all our audience today, and in India and all over the world as well. So we are going live 7 p.m. IST, and this show has been brought to you by Evrox Healthcare, which is a digital healthcare company, and we are launching our F1 app very soon. This show has been brought to you by the series called Mind Matters, which is a series of in which we discuss a lot of psychiatric, psychological, as well as social issues. Being the head of Mind Care, this series I am very proud of this series as a whole. Today we are talking about a very important topic, that is internet addiction. So, problematic computer use is a growing social issue which is being debated worldwide. And internet addiction disorder ruins lives, causing neurological complications, psychological complications, and social problems. The considerable variance of the prevalence rates are reported from as low as 0.3% to as high as 38%. This varies from country to country. Sociocultural factors are involved in this. They may be demographic factors, access to the acceptance of the internet, biological vulnerabilities, genetic factors, abnormalities in neurochemical processes, psychological predispositions, personality characteristics, negative effects, and specific attributes of the internet. So, for this, we have a very eminent speaker amongst us, Dr. Sudhir Bhave. He is the professor and head of the Department of Psychiatry at NKP Salve Institute of Medical Sciences, Nagpur. He has been the topper all throughout his academic career, and I was very proud to have been his student for almost 3 years of my residency. 33 years of teaching experience he has, and he's a postgraduate guide and examiner for MD Psychiatry. He is the winner of LP Shah Oration Award, IPS West Zone, Nagpur Bhushan Award, etc. West Zonal Representative of the IPS 2021. He has chaired 5 subcommittees of Central IPS till date, published numerous papers in the index journals and authored several book chapters. He has edited the first book in the world on cyber psychiatry for the IPS, that is the Indian Psychiatric Society. He is an acclaimed light music vocalist as well. Please welcome Dr. Sudhir Bhave. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Surabhi.
Very happy to have you, and very happy to have been your student, and actually welcoming my mentor and guide for a session on
Thanks.
internet addiction.
Mhm.
So thank you for accepting my invitation.
Yeah, let me say it's a pleasure for me being here with you, Surabhi. I mean, after you were out of the college, I think it's not too often that we meet. So it's a
Yeah,
definite pleasure. Yeah.
thank you, sir. So Dr. Sushil Gawande would be joining us after some time. So in the meanwhile, we can start discussing something about internet addictions. So first of all, actually, we should be discussing about what is addiction, because the common public should know what an addiction is and why is internet addiction a disorder.
Right. I think, yeah, naturally, this is perhaps the most important question today. Normally, lay people look at the number of hours a person is on the internet and then talk of addiction. Doctor, my son he's addicted because he uses the internet for 8 to 10 hours per day. Someone says 12, 13 hours per day. So people go by the number of hours spent. But if you think of how does one technically diagnose addiction, I think technical diagnosis of addiction, internet addiction, does not really differ from the diagnosis of addiction to any of the substances like alcohol or cannabis or opium, etc. I'll tell you how. Because there are a lot of similarities between how do you diagnose drug addiction and internet addiction.
Sir,
Diag-
I'm just sorry to interrupt you for
yeah,
1 minute.
sure.
Your voice is actually low, so could you do something to,
Okay,
or
sure,
could you
sure.
speak louder?
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, I was just saying that people go by the number of hours someone spends on the internet. But technically speaking, if as a psychologist or a psychiatrist, I am to diagnose internet addiction, then some of the diagnostic features are that the person uses the internet for a significant number of hours per day, and the number of hours spent is it goes on increasing incrementally. The use increases over time. If the person is unable to use internet for some time, that leads to irritability and frustration, bad mood and aggression and so on. Just like an alcoholic who does not get his quota of alcohol in time. Um, then there is a definite psychosocial decline in some way because of the use of internet for prolonged hours. The person suffers in some way, like there could be academic loss, there could be occupational difficulties, there could be interpersonal conflicts in the family. So to sum it up, excessive use coupled with some kind of psychological social difficulty arising out of the excessive use, that would form internet addiction.
All right, all right. So, as we talk about so many substances and their abuse and their addictions and the disorders that are substance use disorders, similarly,
Mhm.
like internet addiction disorder was supposed to be included in DSM-5, I guess. So, has it been included or is it going to be included?
No, it is not yet included. I think just for the sake of clarification for the audience, DSM stands for Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. It is one of the most well-known international classifications of psychiatric illnesses. And this classification does not as yet include internet addiction disorder per se, because these classificatory systems, they are based heavily on the evidence that has accumulated. And by the time the last DSM was formulated, that kind of evidence had piled up only for very specific internet addiction called gaming disorder. I think we all are aware of internet gaming, online, offline. So, internet gaming disorder is the only category that has found a place in the DSM. But I'm sure that in the days to come, more such categories would come and we would have internet addiction disorder in general, pornography, online pornography addiction, and so on. I'm certain about that. Yeah.
Yes. So, speaking of this, then what are the common internet addictions that we know of?
Yeah. Uh, Common ones can be enumerated as addiction to internet pornography, online shopping addiction, online gaming that I mentioned just a few moments back, online gambling, online stock trading. So these are some of the common ones. And of course, excessive use of screens for purposes like taking selfies and putting them on the social media. So these are some of the common addictions that we see.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
sir, even going on the stock market
Hmm.
online is
Hmm.
also some sort of an addiction? Like because
Yeah,
people
it
do
is.
it for, okay.
It is. It is. See, before, I mean, the stocks became available online, people had to go to their agent and discuss with him in detail, and then the agent would decide with the person. So
Right.
this is something that could not happen very often. But we know that if you have an entire gamut of stocks at your fingertips at the click of a few buttons, then the urge to keep on buying and keep on monitoring what's happening to the stocks and then delving deep into it and spending a lot of time over it, I think it's understandable that some people would be prone to do that. People who are obsessed with their money growing and it requires a very constant surveillance, constant monitoring about what stocks are going up, which are doing well, which are not doing well. And there are
Mhm.
people who fall for it, and then they become prey to this internet stock trading.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So, sir, we also talked about like psychological complications and certain social complications, familial complications that are associated
Yeah.
with internet
Yeah.
addictions.
Yeah.
So, what are they? Like, what can they be?
Uh, yeah, I think that's a very important question. In fact, if we ask why should there not be internet addiction, the simple answer
Right.
is physical and psychological complications. Now, if we are to enumerate them, I think it's better to see the complications arising in children and those arising in adults. In case of children, the complications are much more serious because with children, it's a developmental age. It's an age where the brain is growing. The brain is, so to say, getting hardwired by all the inputs it gets from the environment. So we know that the brain of a child who's 2 years, 5 years, 8 years of age, it is highly susceptible to whatever the child perceives from the environment. And a child who's exposed to the internet since the early years, it has been shown that they tend to develop quite a few psychological difficulties later in life. For example, these children develop something called ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which basically means that a child who has been fed with a lot of diet of screen throughout the day, his brain kind of gets acclimatized, accustomed to a lot of stimulating material appearing in front of the eyes frequently, very flashy images, images which are changing rapidly. And this child, when offline, the brain would keep on hunting for similar stimuli, and that makes the child overactive, not able to sit quietly because he wants the same kind of stimulation from the environment that he got from the screen. He's not able to attend to tasks and unable to focus, suffers from something that we call inattention. That's one problem. Second problem, which is seen commonly in children who are specially exposed to the screen at very early age, is lack of development of social and communication skills. We know that in the pre-internet era, the communication was entirely offline. The parent figure, whether it's the mother or the father or the grandparent or the babysitter, would talk to the child very frequently and would engage the child. But with less of such communication happening, children are not exposed to two-way communication where they are actively supposed to participate, and that creates a language delay. And even social communication, the ability at social communication, it gets hampered because I mean, developing what we call a social cognition. I mean, the social intelligence, the way you navigate your way through social communications, that gets impaired because if you are sitting through most of the day with this device in your hand and not communicating with live human beings, then there's going to be social deficit. So this lack of social communication is a very serious issue. And in fact, some people in the audience might have heard of something called autism. Autism in children is a condition in which the child is unable to form social relationships and has communication difficulties. And autism-like features can develop in these children. So these are some complications that we see in children. If we talk of the adults, then adults could have issues like difficulty with sleeping, which can also happen with children, because people who use devices late in the evening or just before the bedtime, or very often even in the bed, we see so many people who enter the bed with the device in their hand or the device lying next to them and keep on looking at the device maybe for throughout the night possibly. So they tend to suffer from insomnia, lack of sleep. People tend to suffer more from anxiety, more from depression if they are addicted to the internet, largely because of the frustration of not getting to use the internet and all the psychological complications that arise because of the internet use, like failing in academics or not doing well in their occupation. That leads to this. It has also been seen that people who are internet addicted are more of substance users. So you would find more alcohol dependent people, more people who are cannabis dependent amongst these people. Because you see, the brain substrate, as we call it, for internet addiction and drug addiction, it is not different. The addictions
Acha.
share the same kind of pathways. So these are several complications that you find across the board, across the spectrum of different ages.
Okay, so I think there's a question by Sanjeev.
Yeah.
Sir, I see attention deficit disorder and ADHD in whole, as well social communication impairment even in adults, 18 to 25-year-olds. So it has gone beyond children as well. That is affecting their work and personal relationships. Isn't that alarming?
Um, Sanjeev, thanks for the question. Now, if we talk of ADHD as a disorder, ADHD as a disorder would not arise de novo in adults because by the time you reach adulthood, your brain is already formed. Your ability to communicate, your ability to develop social communications, that's already formed. Now, what happens in adults is that they start communicating less in spite of knowing how to communicate because they are occupied with the screens. Like, for example, if I'm watching screen for say 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours per day, then naturally my communication with real life human beings is going to go down. Though we won't call it disorder, but then there is a decrease in social communication for sure in adults.
Okay, so I hope that answers that. Also, I just
Yeah,
got.
I think, yeah,
Yes,
Surabhi,
sir.
just a moment. I think there is a caveat to what I said, that if the child has been exposed to screen at a very early age and develops ADHD, this ADHD is likely to persist into adulthood. So
Yes,
someone
yes.
who developed ADHD as a child because of excessive screen use, we know that in roughly 60% people, ADHD does not disappear. It continues into adulthood. So 6 out of every 10 people who can develop ADHD because of screens can continue as adults with ADHD.
6 out of 10. That is a huge, huge percentage.
Only 40% recover completely or significantly.
Mm.
Yeah.
So it is alarming, Sanjeev. Yes. So I just got a message from Dr. Gawande that he is joining.
Mhm.
Yes. Uh, can the admin add him, please? So meanwhile, while he has some technical issue, I will just address that. Meanwhile, now that we talked about children and how the brain forms and how it may get into addictions and through the reward pathway, vagare vagare, and also they may get into substance abuse later on. So, at what age, like the audience would like to know, at what age should a child be exposed to screens then, or should they not at all?
That's a very important question. In fact, it has been studied the world over. The World Health Organization has suggested a cutoff of 2 years, that a child should not be exposed to screen till 2 years of age. And in fact, if we study the recommendations from Canadian Association for Pediatricians or British Association for Psychologists, I have studied many of them, and they recommended an age varying between 18 months to 2 years. And in fact, Surabhi, I would like to add here that last year I and my team, we had authored the recommendations for screen use for all the ages on behalf of the Indian Psychiatric Society. And in that also, we kept an age limit of 2 years. So this basically means that till a child is 2 years of age, it's advisable not to give screens or give cell phones or any kind of screen in the child's hands, with the exception that if there is going to be video chat with a parent figure, then that's okay. For example, child who is 1.5 years old, parents staying away, but then the child needs to communicate with the parents, then a video chat is okay. But barring perhaps that one exception, we should not let a child less than 2 years of age use screens. So that's a cutoff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think the audience is very clear about this now. So do not let your children use screens before the age of 2. And oh yes, Dr. Gawande is here.
Hi, sir.
Hi, Sushil. Good evening.
Hi, sir. Hello, sir.
Hi.
Hi, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
We were we were actually discussing about what age the child should be exposed to screens.
Acha.
In fact, Survi, let me tell you that when I said me and my team made some recommendations, Sushil
Yes,
was a part
yes.
of the team. So I suppose his opinion is going to be the same as mine.
Yes, absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
So I think now I should go to Dr. Sushil and
Yes,
ask him certain questions. Dr. Bhave ran the show very beautifully until now. So,
yes,
Dr. Gawande, does like now, as we talked about other issues as well, does pornography
yes.
also harm in a way?
Absolutely. Means
I mean,
if you
sexual pleasures are sexual pleasures. So a lot of time people masturbate while they watch porn, or a lot of times they have sexual intimacy with their partners when they watch porn, or sometimes it's just like that. So how does it harm?
as you said, addiction wise, yes, internet addiction has six different facets. So one of that is a social media addictions or information overload, online stalking, online gaming, gambling. In the same way, even a pornographic addiction is a part of internet addiction. And when it comes to addiction, it harms, be it a pornographic addiction or be it a social media addiction. Now you are to be very precise about your questions, that in our day-to-day life, when we see watch pornographic material while intimacy, how does it help or how does it harm? So yeah, to some extent, it could be arousing to both the partners. That is one thing, but it has a negative side also. It leads to a lot of objectification. Means we tend to expect something which is very unreal from our partner, and our partner also can expect something very very unreal from us. So when this pornographic material is prepared, it is prepared in a way to appeal audience, so audience will be more interested in watching that. So they can't show something which is very ordinary or which is very real. And to show something extraordinary, they would add lot of things, lot of spice into that. They would use different cameras, different lenses, and they would show the body parts much enlarged than they really could be. And after watching this, people could expect similar things from the partners, and it could lead to unrealistic expectations. It could lead to the violence. It could lead to the abnormal sexual practices, and it could then land up into the relationship problems, and it could be a reason for dispute among couples.
Yeah. And I would like to add one more thing, that many youngsters, with adults, things are a little different. But when youngsters see it, watch pornography online, then one common negative outcome is feelings of inferiority with their own sexual anatomy, their ability to perform. If you see pornographic films, almost all the females are ravishingly beautiful, very well endowed, and all the men are handsome with large penises. Now, that is something that does not happen in real life. So, I think a young boy who is watching a sexual act being enacted, he is going to develop a complex that, oh my God, I do not have a penis like that. So, will I be able to satisfy my partner? So, I think
Yes.
faulty expectations not only from the partner, but even being unhappy with your own anatomy. That's, I think, one major
Yes.
issue.
And
So right.
so
Yes,
to
sir.
add into this, sir, we very often, you are here in the practice in so many years, and over last 15, 16 years, I am here. So I also observe that over last 5 years, we get many youngsters in OPD with these complaints that my size of my penis is very small and I need some
Hmm.
medications to increase it.
Yeah,
Maybe 5, 10 years back, the percentage of people coming with these problems were not there or were not so much, but now it's increasing.
I agree. I agree. Quite true.
Yeah, a lot of people even debate about the size, as in they feel ki, like it has to be of this size, it has to be of this girth, and a lot of
Yeah.
other things. So there are a lot of misconceptions being spread because of pornography as well.
I know, and then you have these pop-up advertisements saying increase your size by say so many, so many inches.
Ha
It will show.
ha, right.
So I mean,
Yes, yes,
anyone who's watching that big
yes,
penis doing intercourse, and then
yes,
comes a pop-up advertisement, he's going to get
yes,
affected by that.
yes, yes, yes. And many times, sir, they come with that formula. Sir, I have already used this formula. It didn't work.
Yes.
Is there anything else than this? So,
True.
Yes, and a lot of those products are Ayurvedic, and a lot of adulteration is also there, and they harm a lot of other organs as well. So,
And Surabhi, I would like to point out one more complication in adults, that wives
yes.
have started complaining that instead of coming to the bedroom, my husband keeps on watching pornography till late night.
yes, yes, yes,
And in fact, that's a major issue because we come across, I think Sushil also must have seen
yes,
this kind of questions. The
yes, yes,
husband is watching
yes,
porno till
yes.
12
Oh,
a.m., 1 a.m., 12 p.m.
sir,
or 1 a.m., and
yes,
the wife getting
yes.
fed up.
And going a step ahead, sir, many people they put pornographic on and they put earphone in their ears, and then they perform the intercourse with their wife. So they are actually doing some physical activity with the wife, but through mind they are concentrating on the pornographic. All the sounds they hear there. Now, such sort of sounds are maybe arousing for that male partner. In a real life, it's not possible for a female to behave like that. So it's only possible in a pornographic film that a female actress is creating that voice. So to listen that they would do, they would mix these earphones with the natural intercourse.
I know. An interesting trivia here when I was doing my MD, and
Mm-hmm.
in Fort area, I think this must be in 1980s. There would be pornographic magazines. I mean, Playboys and Penthouses, and then there would be cassettes with something written like "sex ki आवाजें." I
Oh.
asked my friend कि sex की आवाज़ें का cassette क्या है? And then he told me, they are sex sounds. So now earlier you had to go to Bombay Fort to buy sex की आवाज़ें का cassette. Now you have that at your fingertip.
Okay. Okay. Gawande sir, also speaking of, like, we talked about pornography at length now. So, why not talk about the other facets of internet addiction as well? So, the
Yes,
ones you
yes.
mentioned.
Yes, absolutely. Means there are different facets. Like I would say, mother of internet addiction is online gaming addiction and online gambling addiction. Earlier, criteria were not there for social media addictions and all. So in the literature, the first time internet addiction was introduced was through this online gambling addiction and online gaming addiction, which was later the same criteria were followed for the rest of the addictions like social media addictions, then online stock trading type of addictions, then online buying, that is oniomania, then information overload. So all sort of the addictions they then came into this. So if you see addiction, internet addiction under this umbrella, 6 different addictions are there.
Okay. So, when we talk about information addiction, so do you mean by that that, like, people, कुछ भी discussion चल रहा है and then suddenly they would like to go on Google and then,
No,
कि
no,
हाँ, Google क्या
no,
बोल रहा है? It's
it's
not
the
like that.
information overload. So
Overload,
all
yes.
these addictions are classified in 2 categories like
Mm-hmm.
online and offline. So now on gaming addiction, it would be of two kind. One is online gaming addiction and offline gaming addiction. So information overload means people would download so much of information with the anticipation that the information will be useful to them in near future.
Oh, okay. 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 So, Dr. Bhave, okay, then there is another question. HPA function is dysregulated in people addicted to alcohol and nicotine. How does the psychophysiological system work in addiction to internet? Does the HPA axis work similarly? Does the dopamine level also rise with internet addiction? Does prefrontal cortex dysfunction also occur? Okay.
A simple answer would be yeah, yes. I mean, let's put it this way: that barring some minor differences, the neurophysiological systemic disturbances in substance use disorders, that is, the drugs, would be more or less similar to what we see in internet addiction. The same kind of pathways, the same kind of excessive dopamine release in the nucleus accumbens, which is a part of the emotion perceiving part of the brain. So it's more or less the same. More of HPX's stimulation is also there. More of adrenaline rush is there. So yeah, biochemically they are quite similar. And as I said earlier, that because of the biochemical similarity and because of the neurological deficits in people who are known to be drug addicts, um, there is a lot of overlap between these two entities, an anatomical overlap. Yeah.
So speaking of this, then I think the next question that would pop up in anybody's mind is that, do medications help? Like, as they do in other addictions, do medications help in internet addiction?
By and large, the answer should be no. Medications do not help. There is some research going on and some studies here and there that cite, say, a particular drug. I would not name it here for the fear that people might start using it without
Using.
prescription. But one particular drug is touted as helping addictions, but it's not an absolutistic statement. I mean, ऐसा कोई drug नहीं है which can, I mean, cure internet addiction in everyone. And by and large, we don't depend on medication when it comes to treatment of internet addiction. It's more of counseling, behavioral change, some specific kinds of psychotherapy techniques that help.
Survi, I would like to add over here, there is a basic difference between internet addiction and non-internet addiction.
Hmm.
Now, the basic difference is essentiality of the molecule. Now, when it comes to a cannabis addiction or let's say brown sugar addiction,
Hmm.
so brown sugar is not an essential part of our life,
Right.
right? Now, when it comes to internet-based addiction, internet by and large became an integral part of our life, essential part of life. Second thing, if you carry brown sugar with you, it's illegal. You can't
Hmm.
carry openly, but you can carry your internet, your mobile with you without any fear. Okay. So
Yes.
now, when it comes to consumption of brown sugar, you need to take lot of care. Care number one, procuring the substance is a big challenge. Okay, getting that substance, brown sugar, then finding a right place to consume it. Okay, so now when it comes to internet addictions, you need not to struggle for
Hmm.
both these things. Procuring the substance when internet is already available with you, and using it will not be annoying to anyone sitting around you.
Right.
So now,
Hmm.
that's why the principles which we follow for the management of brown sugar addiction will not equally applicable to the management of internet addiction because it has become a integral part. Accessibility is more than other substances, and it is very rare for them for anyone to suspect that they are addicting to it.
Right. और इसका तो कोई dry day भी नहीं होता है. Every day
Yes.
you can use it. Yes. Okay. Moving ahead, sir, I think a lot of people, when we talk about internet, also like talking about, the other psychologies that are involved, say, for example, in cyberbullying or cyber stalking. So, what would be your comments on that?
Uh, I think these things are a definite reality for the past more than a decade. And in fact, we keep on reading about cyberbullying, cyber stalking, the psychological difficulties arising out of it, youngsters committing suicide when they are at the
Yes.
receiving end of cyberbullying. We have seen the complications arising out of cyber stalking, making friends online, meeting them offline, and things of that sort. So I think these things are rather difficult to handle because we know that on in online field a lot there are a lot of differences between offline behavior of people and online behavior of people, and we know that online behaviors are more disinhibited. One would tend to say or express the kind of things that one would normally not do offline. One would find like-minded individuals very easily who altogether can do cyberbullying. There's a great security in the anonymity when you do these kind of things. So I think these things are rather frightening, unlike the offline world. So I think these are rather difficult things, and I think a lot of work needs to be done in the society, whereby we need to educate the children who are doing cyberbullying, as well as therapize the children who are at the receiving end of cyberbullying. So yeah, that's one of the very significant evils of the modern day society.
Yes, because a lot of time, a lot of girls also come to the OPD saying that they got bullied on the net and
Yeah.
like especially on social media platforms like Facebook or Instagram. So,
Hmm.
say for example, they have put up maybe a TikTok video or maybe a photograph, and then there would be anonymous boys with anonymous usernames
Hmm.
writing certain comments about their body shapes or body parts, or maybe the way they are talking or their voice, or and many other things.
Hmm.
So, a
Hmm.
lot of times they need a lot of psychological counseling. That's there. So, also, Dr. Gawande, have you heard that has been going on?
Mm, uh, uh, just I overheard it. Okay, I didn't read much about it. Dr. Bhave must be knowing.
Click farming, no, not really. It seems to be something new.
Yeah, basically what is happening is that a lot of times, say for example, some celebrity uploads a video, and within an hour or so, they will get millions of likes and millions of comments. So actually, वो millions actually है नहीं. मतलब in reality, it's not there. So there is a completely different industry only based on this. Like people are getting employed and paid for this. That they just have to sit on the internet, and the moment the video is uploaded, or say for example the song is uploaded or whatever, uh, the members with different accounts, they start liking and sharing and subscribing and commenting. So click farming usko naam diya gaya hai, and this has been happening a lot recently.
Surabhi, you could tell me one agency who does that. I could use that for my own video, maybe.
Okay. Surabhi, is it similar to what we can say ratings of some serials on television that the in between there
That too,
was
yes. Like say for example, अभी ये हमारा वीडियो YouTube पे suppose upload हो जाएगा इसके बाद. So
okay.
if we want to get popular, we would be employing people to like and subscribe and comment on our videos as much as possible. एंड देन व्हाट
Okay.
हैपेंस इज कि ऑब्वियसली क्योंकि अगर जैसे यूट्यूब पे लिख के आ गया कि इसको मिलियंस ऑफ लाइक्स मिल चुके हैं ऑलरेडी या मिलियन व्यूज हो चुके हैं इस चीज के, सो ऑब्वियसली द अदर ऑडियंस इज आल्सो अट्रैक्टेड कि ऐसा क्या है इस वीडियो में, सो लेट्स क्लिक ऑन इट एंड लेट्स
Yeah.
वॉच इट.
I think if we think of human psyche, this has existed for a long time. But with
Yeah.
online thing, it has become more easy. Because, for example,
Yes.
Surbi, I recall having read that, say, for example, Filmfare Award for
हाँ.
the best music director, best composer. And I have read of instances when a specific composer duo, they would buy 50,000, they would engage an agent who would buy 50,000 copies of Filmfare, fill up the nomination forms for that particular composer, and that particular composer ended up getting a very large number of Filmfare Awards. So I think, yeah, if you look at the human psyche, it has existed. But I think with online thing, of course, like many other things, it has become easier. Like for that agency also, it has become very easy. Like you don't have to go and buy 50,000 copies of a magazine. It just needs some employees who can keep on clicking. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Bangladesh has huge click farms. Our rapper genius does that a lot. Borolok air beta low. Probably that's in Bengali. Okay, so rapper genius, I think probably he's talking of Bacha, maybe. I think. Anyway,
Yes.
yes, I think so. Yeah, so that has been happening. You were absolutely right. Even in, like, say for example, Indian Idol or a lot of other reality shows, जिसमें voting होती है. So a lot of people buy those voters. So they will create a lot of accounts and they would keep voting so that the votes increase. तो ये भी I think पहले season से ही चलता आ रहा है, and it goes on in every reality show. So, okay. Now discussing about all of this, what would be our recommendations for parents as well as the general public?
Yeah, I think that's again a big field. And as I told you, me, Sushil, and our team had formulated the recommendations. The recommendations are quite a few, but I think just to sum up the important ones, if we look at small children and adolescents, some of the important points I would say are like one thing that I stated earlier, that no exposure to screen, with the exception of video conferencing with the family till 2 years of age. Even after 2 years, the screen, if at all it is being used, it should be used under parental supervision. The child should not be, a small child should not be left alone with the screen. Whatever is being seen on the screen should be discussed with the child as to what exactly is happening there, so that the child is better able to relate that to the real world. See, because for small children, the online knowledge does not get translated easily into the three-dimensional real world. So it takes an adult to explain as to what is happening. As the child grows older, then I think negotiating the time when the screen would be used, the number of hours for which it would be used, that has to be negotiated with the child. Parents should try not to impose things, because it's human psyche that anything that is imposed tends to be disregarded, disobeyed. So I think it should happen in a cordial environment with more of discussion about the difficulties arising because of excessive use and so on. In young children, internet should be used more for educational purposes rather than entertainment purposes. With as the child grows older, then educating the child about the safety norms becomes very, very important. That itself is a big area in itself. So safety norms like not posting any sensitive personal information on the internet, no, not posting photographs or video of your own self, which the kind that general public should not be able to see, because things can get viral very easily on the internet. Not using your name in your email address, but form an email address which does not include it. Using maybe a pet name for your, your internet identity, and those kind of things. So these are the things for children and adolescents. For recommendation for adults, Sushil, would you like to say something?
Yes, sir. I would like to add two things. One thing, all the listeners should you can visit Indian Psychiatric Society website. We have prepared all these recommendations and they are uploaded. Okay, and you can freely download it. All the recommendation across the age 0 to 2 years, then 2 years onwards. Then for the adults, all these recommendations are available there. Second would be you should all be aware if ever you want to see yourself getting through a problem of internet addiction, you can freely download Young's Internet Addiction Test. And throughout the world, for all the research purposes, we are using this particular test, Young's Internet Addiction Test, which is very freely available. Please go through that, and you could be a problem user. As Bhavesh sir mentioned, almost most of the things are applicable for adults as well. But in addition to that, adult should not uh, use in 1, 2, 3, 4 patterns. One is we shouldn't keep our internet data on always. Okay, means there are some times where we should be away from this internet. So if you are going to bed, you should switch off your internet and as well as your mobile per se 1 hour prior to your bedtime, because if we don't do that, we may fall into a category of problematic internet use or the internet addiction. Second thing, our habit of responding to each post every time immediately could add up to our behavior of visiting to cell phone again and again. So there should be a stipulated time when you will respond. So if you have a habit कि immediately किसी का message आया सुरभि and immediately responding to it, you tend to touch your cell phone more often. So that we can withhold. There should be a stipulated time. Third is if we have a completely unnecessary apps accumulated in our cell phone, too many apps are there, then we are going to use them. Okay, and because sometimes we don't want to use, but because that app is there, we get a notification, we use them. So we should shut off all those notifications which are not very essential for us. And rather, I would go a step ahead. We should just delete or uninstall all those apps which are not needed for us. Otherwise, unnecessarily to see that notification, we will go. One principle of cell phone and as a internet, it is so attractive that if you think of visiting it for 2 minutes, you will go ahead on the phone for maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or even for hours. Because the moment you will touch, you will see different notifications, and then those notifications will guide you rather than you are guiding your cell phone approach. That notifications will guide. So we would remove that. Third thing for the adult, fourth thing for the adults, we are a role model for our children. So children tend to imitate us. So if we use cell phone more often at home, our children are going to follow the same thing. So we should restrict our use at home and when it is not necessary. It also matters with the relationship. If we are too much engrossed with our mobile cell phones, and so we may not realize, but we are curtailing the productive time which we need to give to our friends, our parents, spouse, as well as to our children. So when we are talking and when we having a cordial face-to-face interactions, we should keep our mobile away. After that, if we always tend to keep our mobile below our pillow, then just in our pocket always, we tend to touch it again. So our chances of getting to a problematic use increases. So when it is not necessary, yes, you can keep cell phone at least a 10 feet away. So because of that feeling कि कौन वहां जाएगा और कौन उठाएगा, you may reduce down frequency of your touching to your cell phone. So keeping it at a distance would be helpful. Then for the adults, I would say there are many adults, in spite of knowing everything, they would use cell phone while driving, and that also in front of children. So we are giving bad teachings to our children. That is one thing, and we are definitely risking our life. So when we are driving, keep the mobile away, keep it on a Bluetooth or something. Or if it is not essential, maybe for the doctors, those who are working in a intensive care unit, it may be important for them to pick up the call. But for other people, they can definitely wait for a few minutes. You can take your vehicle on the safer side of the road and then talk to someone. So all these one, two, three, could have missed something which Dr. Bhave would like to add. Uh, but yeah, these broadly these are the tips which adults also can follow.
Yeah, I think that was very comprehensive. Just one or two points more. That I think some people might be aware that there are apps that can monitor your use of the screen, and they can give you a feedback. Just to name a few, like App Detox or Moments. I mean, there are so many such apps. So if you download one such app, which will tell you that okay, you have used the screen for this much time, so alarm, it rings a bell. Or there are apps that simply shut off your screen if you exceed a particular stipulated time, the one that you fed in. So I think if someone thinks that his or her use of the cell phone is exceeding what he or she would like to, then I think downloading such an app would be quite fine. And I think one more thing, that if we are to decrease our screen time, I think finding alternative ways of spending time enjoyably or maybe more productively, I think that's needs to be explored. Like indulge in something that will engage you, that would be good for you, say developing a hobby or maybe communicating with a relative or a friend on a daily basis. So I think these kind of things can distract you from an excessive screen use. Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of apps that even tell you that, that they give a weekly report or a daily report कि आज
Yeah.
आपका mobile use, your screen time was more than yesterday, and it exceeded like by 2 hours. Or there can be a weekly report as well. And at the same time, they also show कि sleep time में, मतलब the bedtime that you had arranged in your phone, say for example 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. So if you're doing that, they also tell you कि 12 a.m. से 8 a.m. के बीच में आपके sleep focus में क्या क्या था on the screen, like what were you doing on the screen when you should actually have been sleeping. So they
Right.
tell you that also. They also tell you कि किन किन लोगों से तुम बहुत ज्यादा बात कर रहे हो at odd hours, and even like not at odd hours, whenever, but जिससे ज्यादा बात हो रही है, then they give a report कि तुम्हारी बात इससे बहुत ज्यादा हो रही है, you should avoid now. So a lot of things are there. पर
I
आप
think
दोनों की बातें सुन के I am very sure कि मुझे internet addiction है. So I think I need to take that Young's test that
that's
So
very
Gawande
you
sir
know
mentioned.
the prevalence of internet addiction? Can you guess, Surabhi? Prevalence of internet addiction?
सर मैंने बस पढ़ा कि 0 to 38% मतलब वेरी करता है अलग अलग नेशंस में.
Yes, sir. Means in a different studies, different its prevalence are quoted. Highest is 29.5%. Okay, so roughly it is 30%. In some studies, it is even 2%, 5%. So if we consider that study authentic, so 30%, 30 people out of 100. So even I think even that is a tip of iceberg. Even more than that would be affected with internet addiction.
हाँ, because हर कोई सर्वे नहीं लेता है, तो obviously there
Yeah,
may be
and
many more people.
not all people are answering to the survey honestly. That's the reason.
हाँ, that's
Yeah.
also there.
I think a lot of these results, they also depend on the diagnostic criteria used. Like, are the criteria too liberal?
हाँ.
If they're too liberal, like for example, if the criterion is, say for example, use of
हम्म.
more than 5 hours should be taken as addiction. then means too many
तो
people
फिर
are going
सभी एडिक्ट है.
Yes, 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 yes,
So
yes.
different cultures, different
Uh,
diagnostic criteria. I
mm,
think these are what cause
yeah,
these differences.
yeah. And one more interesting,
There is
sir,
also this
in
thing.
our
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
all the diagnostic criteria which are given by American Psychiatric Society or the ICD also, right? There is no mention of Surabhi, no mention of a time. Okay, so time
Hmm.
is not related to the addiction. It is a
Hmm.
problematic use, means how problematically you are using, how your social, occupational, important areas of functioning is getting affected, how what withdrawal symptoms and moodiness and nervousness you get when you are off that. That is important. So
Yeah.
some people could be addicted to internet even by not using it for a longer time. That is one thing. And in one of the study, they have found out averagely those people who are internet addict, they would use cell phone for 38.5 hours per week.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
roughly it comes more than 5 hours a day.
Hmm.
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 In fact, if you look at the international recommendations, different countries, no recommendations mention this time limit because they say
Yes,
that we do not have enough evidence to put a particular point at these many number of hours.
yes, 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 yes.
There is also this thing I remember as a youngster जब मैं छोटी थी, I think 2008 or 2009 में, when Facebook suddenly came into like the picture, and उसके पहले there was Orkut. There was this Orkut नाम का एक social media platform था. उसके बाद
Yeah.
Facebook took over. Then now Instagram is reigning. So what happens is कि जैसे सर बोल रहे थे ना कि फोन जब अगर बाजू में रखा है तो obviously you will obviously keep on touching it, and you will be going on your social media platform. So what generally happens as a youngster, I'm just telling कि अरे अभी इंस्टाग्राम पे ना अभी इतने लोगों के फोटोज अपलोड हुए हैं, तो अगर मैंने उसका फोटो लाइक नहीं किया तो वो मेरा नहीं करेगी, तो मेरा नहीं करेगी तो मुझे जो जितने 200 प्लस या 500 प्लस लाइक्स चाहिए थे वो कहाँ से आएंगे. सो देन दिस बिकम्स अ कंपटीशन कि दूसरों के इस पे भी कमेंट करो, लाइक करो, ताकि मुझे भी मिले. सो उसमें भी बहुत यंगस्टर्स एंगेज्ड रहते हैं.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
And online, see, one psychological phenomenon that happens is being polite. Out of politeness, you show a thumb or you put a smiley one. They will not enjoy the joke. लेकिन ऐसा लगता है कि यार इसको ऐसा नहीं दिखाया, स्माइलीज नहीं डाले तो दुखी हो जाएगा, डाल दो. So it is not really a sincere opinion of someone who has seen the post, but just socially desirable responses.
Response.
यस यस दैट हैपेंस. लाइक अगर कोई रैंडम फोटो ही रहे तो भी वेरी नाइस पिक्चर, ये है वो है ऐसा है वैसा है, एंड नीचे में नाउअडेज यू आर गेटिंग ऑल ऑफ दोज एज वेल, लाइक हिंट्स कि आपने कमेंट क्या करना चाहिए. So when you go on the comment blog and you actually want to type something of your own, it will keep on prompting कि नहीं नहीं ये डालो ये डालो with
I think
stickers.
Sushil will agree with me because Sushil also sings very well. That very often happens that you see a video of someone who has sung a song, you know
हाँ.
it is besura, betal, not at all melodious, and then a barrage of comments like "wonderful singing, what a singer, you should go to Mumbai" and things like that. And तकलीफ होती है कि यार किस गाने की तारीफ हो रही है, नहीं सुशील?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. Very true, sir.
Sir, now touching upon the gaming point as well, I would like to mention कि games में भी, if you remember, what happens is that if you download a game on your cell phone, उसमें भी वो बीच बीच में advertisements आते हैं दूसरे games के, and a lot of those games encourage gambling as well. Say for example, if you are on some app and आजकल वो रमी या तीन पत्ती खेल लो, रमी खेल लो, and a lot of other things keep on like they give on keep on getting those advertisements, and उसमें ऐसा हो जाता है that then you do tend to download it because it gives you an option. Do you want to download? Do you want to download? And then ultimately यार ad में तो दिखाया है इसके 500 के 5000 हो गए, इसके 50,000 के 2 लाख हो गए, तो चलो मैं भी करके देखता हूँ. So this, like, gaming is also in a way encouraging gambling and both these disorders on the internet. And also if you remember, there was this blue whale नाम का game जिसमें
Yes.
at the end like उसमें काफी tasks दिए
Challenge.
जाते थे, and
Yes, yes.
the last, yes, the challenges were there,
Challenge
and
games.
some of the
Yes.
people committed suicides because of that.
Yes, yes.
And then there was also this Pokemon Go नाम का गेम बीच में बहुत फेमस हुआ था, जिसमें you can actually see those Pokemons live, like there is this projection, and people would actually go, मतलब हिंगना से चले गए, टी पॉइंट चले गए पोकेमोन के पीछे, and then
Yes,
because you are watching your screen and you're watching that Pokemon, a lot of people met with accidents as well,
yes, yes.
because you are driving but you want to see the Pokemon, you can't see the other cars, so that
Yes,
happens. Anyway, just giving all those examples.
yes,
So
yes.
lastly, I think we should touch upon. Yes, sir. Please go ahead. You were saying something,
No, no, absolutely.
Dr. Gawande. You were saying something.
I guess you may tell to your listeners that basically offline games are there, then online games are there.
Huh.
Under the category of the
Huh.
online games, single player games and multiplayer games and challenge
Hmm.
games. So offline games are less addictive,
Yes.
while online games are more addictive. Under an umbrella of online games, three games are there: single player, multiplayer, and the challenge games. So these multiplayer games are more addicting because multiple people are involved at a time than a single player game. And challenge games, right? Challenge games are mostly played in isolation by people. So no one will directly jump on a challenge games or on a multiplayer games. So we have to be little more educated about our children using these games. We can't be completely unaware कि ये games क्या होता है हमें कुछ नहीं मालूम. Yes, because if your child is playing these challenge games, there are some challenges. Most of the challenge games are played in isolation, so there are some problems why he is getting involved into isolated type of the challenge games. And multiplayer games, again he would spend a significant time because in a colony children are there, 5 6 children are there at a time for 2 3 hours. They are all busy in multiplayer games, and if it is too often then it's going to affect their academic performance. So little more awareness among parents is needed about these games.
Yes, because I remember in between a lot of. Okay, sir, kindly discuss the difference between over dependence and addiction. Like there's a difference between drug dependence and addiction. Is there an overlap? Is impairment in behavioral control a prime differentiator, or maybe a diminished cognizance of significant issues in real life?
Yeah, there are quite a few questions. I think I'll try to give a brief answer. One is that drug dependence and drug addiction, or say any dependence or addiction, for lay public, I mean, if you talk technically, then there are differences at a biological level and behavioral level. But then for all practical purposes, at a community level, dependence and addiction are synonymous. So internet dependence and internet addiction, they are same. Over dependence is not a technical term. Like we never talk of over, say, internet screen over dependence. But I think I'm getting what you are hinting at. Over dependence means, if at all we are to use that word, somebody using it excessively, then I would say that it lies somewhere between a normal use and addiction.
Hmm.
So you are too dependent on it, though not amounting to addiction. Though, as I said, it's not a technical word. So I have to conjure a meaning offhand. So yeah, that's it. And yeah, the question is impairment in behavioral control, a prime differentiator. Um, See, when it comes to dependence, impairment in behavioral control is a given. I think that's a kind of one of the basic pathologies in any dependence or addiction. That is true.
I think a lot of personality traits also play a huge role in
Yeah,
getting
of course.
addicted to.
If you
Yeah.
look at the risk factors as to who would become internet addicted, I think the personality variable is very important. Certain
Hmm.
kinds of personalities who are socially shy, people who are anxious, people who are escapists, people who want immediate
Hmm.
gratifications. They are the kind of people who are more likely to become addicted to internet.
Yes. So I think lastly, we should just touch upon the preventive strategies that can be used, and also if there is any treatment to this, if already somebody is internet addicted. So, Dr. Gawande, would you like to start with
Yes,
this?
yes, yes, yes. So all those recommendations are preventive strategies, as Dr. Bhave said. So for a children
True.
less than 2 years of age, absolutely no screen exposure, and whatever screen exposure is there, that should be high definition. And after 2 years also, a limited time of period of a time under supervision of the parents, and promote the high definition. High definition means educational programs that can be watched on television. That's called as a high definition. And all
हाँ मतलब
or
हाई डेफिनेशन स्क्रीन ना समझे आप ऑडियंस एचडी स्क्रीन की बात नहीं हो रही है यहाँ पे
yes, 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 okay. Because in those recommendations, you will read about these words, high definition, high definition. So it should be very, very clear. So all those recommendations are preventive strategies.
Yeah, and I would like to add here that if you think of prevention, then we can think of different levels at which prevention could be done. Like prevention could be done with children in schools and colleges. Prevention could be done with adults and parents. Prevention could be done at workplace, because we know that use of online thing is a very ubiquitous thing, very universal thing at workplace. And people are likely to get addicted to screens because they have to use screen a lot at workplace. And fourthly, at policy level. In fact, countries like China and Korea, they are implementing some policy level recommendations for prevention. For example, in China, it has been made compulsory for the gaming agencies, the companies that manufacture these gaming software, that after some time the game loses power. It means instead of playing well, the persons cannot earn any more points. So these kind of policy changes are also important at a very high level. So the preventive strategy depends on the target population that you are aiming the strategy at.
Yes, yes. And one more thing, sir, I would like to add here, awareness is very, very important. Okay, because we have some medical treatment for brown sugar addiction or alcohol addiction, but for internet addiction, awareness is the treatment and awareness is the prevention. So how to use this internet, that awareness should be there. And it starts from means sometimes for a child of 4 years we need not even think about make him aware about the brown sugar addiction or opioid addiction or a heroin addiction. But even for a 4 years old child, now I need to think about the internet addiction. So awareness among the parents for their children, for their adolescents, even for themselves is the key for prevention as well as treatment.
Yeah. And if I may add one thing, I think when we talk of internet addiction and recommendations in adults and children, I think we should not miss one point, that we should not fall prey to an alarmist tendency that internet is frightening, stay away from it. And I think that must not happen, because internet is a technology which is fantastic. I think
Yes,
when Tim Berners-Lee
yes
invented internet in 1991, he has done a
yes,
great service to humanity. Internet is wonderful. Now, as we
yes,
say with all technology, how it is used is very important. So I think
yes,
education should not be frightening to the child or the adolescent, but more pragmatic, emphasizing both the plus plus side and the minus side. So it should be a rather balanced view to be presented by the parents, rather than a
yes.
very alarmist kind of view.
Allow.
Yeah.
true so thank you both of you for your comments and being such wonderful speakers on our show and both of you being my guides and mentors in real life as well and I got to learn a lot of things even today from you through the seminar so thank
And
you a
let,
lot
let me add that
yes
we both of us learned something from you about click farming.
Yes.
Neither of
oh yes
thanks
Yes.
for that.
सर अभी 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 क्लिक फार्मिंग मैं जस्ट करने वाली हूँ इसके बाद जस्ट एट द एंड ऑफ द शो because I have to tell the entire audience who are watching us live as well as who would be watching us later to like, subscribe, and comment. Also, comment as to what more topics you would like us to cover in the coming shows. Also, if you haven't yet liked our Facebook page, please do that. So this is I'm encouraging click farming, but then I have to. So okay, that's there. So thank you both of you, wonderful speakers. It was an amazing, amazing seminar, and a lot of information was shared. A lot of relevant information was shared, and thank you for being so precise, crisp, and elaborate as well at the same time. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Surabhi. Thanks a
thank
lot.
you.
It was great. It was not. I must say it was edutainment for me also. I mean, I
Educate.
loved it.
Yes, yeah, edutainment.
Edutainment. It's a good word. I think I'll use it.
Edutainment.
Yes.
Edutainment.
Let me
Bye,
say
sir.
Thank you.
you exceeded my expectations. Great.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Bye to both of
And
you.
good night, both of you.
Yeah.
Yes, kya sir?
No, bye to
Good
both of
night.
you.
Take care.
Acha,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Good
Bye.
night, good night.
Good
Bye, bye,
night.
bye.
Bye. Bye. Sir.